What was your experience there?
See, both the terrain and the weather really test the mettle of every man. It's not a simple thing. To stay at 21,000, 22,000 feet for over 120 days, the very body chemistry changes, and every year I trek in the mountains up to 18,000, 19,000, but we are there for a few days, 3-4 days, and we are down. But once you stay there for long enough, the very fundamental chemistry of the body changes. So these men go through a certain extremities of situations within themselves. The battle is not only when there is an actual battle, it's a daily battle with the elements of nature. So we thought we should offer certain tools with which we can make the body in such a way that in such extreme climates it can be much more comfortable than it normally is. For myself, it's always been true that just because of certain yogic practices, many of us who travel with me every year, we never have anything called altitude issues.
Okay.
Simply because of those practices. So we wanted to offer this to the soldiers there, and that's why we were there. It's an incredible level of commitment that makes them stay there. To live in such harsh conditions, to live such meager lives, at the same time willing to die for the nation, is something that nation should celebrate, you know.
But Sadhguru, talking to you about the way yoga is being propagated in the country, my question to you is that, is India on the right track as far as the propagation of yoga is concerned? Because generally there is a perception that West propagates yoga better than India.
We cannot say better than India, but they market better than us, definitely.
Okay.
There's no question. Are we propagating it right? No, when you try to do things large scale, it gets dissipated. The true power and the essence of yoga, the roots of yoga will get hurt. So for example, Isha Foundation, we teach classical Hatha Yoga. It takes enormous amount of training before we allow somebody to teach. And it takes a certain level of sense of sacrifice of oneself to even train for these things. But at least the word yoga is at least getting on par with Coca-Cola. So everybody's hearing the word yoga in the world today, thanks to the International Yoga Day and thanks to various other organizations and others who worked for it. Above all, our Prime Minister is promoting it so passionately. All these things have added up, and now the world has taken up in a big way. Last time I was at the United Nations, and you should see the level of enthusiasm from across the world. Every embassy in the world wants it. People from various nations want it. So this is happening for sure. Is it perfect yoga happening? No. Because when you teach large scale, things will go off. So this is the reason why it's important we teach something which is basic steps of yoga, not try to teach all of it in a short span and in mass dissemination. Yoga will lose its structure. But teaching classical yoga takes, as I said, that much time and involvement, which you can't get in the world just like that. People want to do something on the side. So there are aspects of yoga which can be done. Are we doing the right thing? At least we are making the world come to know there is something. There are tools for your self-transformation. This is the important thing. That if you want to transform yourself, you don't have to look up or down, you don't have to adhere to some philosophy or ideology. You can use simple methods to enhance your life. This is coming to the world slowly, and that's a very good thing.
Coming to the spirituality which Sadhguru you talk about, and that is definitely doesn't look like a straitjacket. It is something which you always say that it cannot be defined within a certain boundary. What is that spirituality? Because you say that the spirituality is almost like a technology.
It's uncanny that you use the word straitjacket. Because unfortunately, that is how people have understood it, and unfortunately that's how, to some extent, it's been transmitted, that if you say, I'm spiritual, first thing people will ask you is, what are the things you cannot do?
I'm going to come to that as well.
So people think spirituality is some kind of a disability. No, spirituality is a tremendous empowerment. When you say a spiritual seeker, this is a land of seeking, India. So here we always held mukti, moksha as the highest things. So it's about liberation, it's about freedom. When the goal is freedom, how can straitjacket work, I'm asking? So, in many ways, through various activities, we are trying to bring it home not just by talk, by demonstration, that spirituality is a tremendous empowerment. Just about anything you can take it and do it.
There is a perception in our country that a religious seeker or a religious guru has to carry a religious textbook in his hand, he has to speak about religion, he has to be in poverty. That is the kind of impression which people generally have.
I'm a normal birth for my mother. I didn't fall out of a book. I'm a life and a full-fledged life, and that's all life is aspiring for. All life is aspiring for just that. Whether it's a little plant or a worm or an insect or a bird or an animal or a human being, what is it human beings are aspiring for? To become a full-fledged life, to be everything that you can be.
Yeah.
So this is that kind of empowerment and nourishment. So in this, somebody thinks by pretending in some way or behaving in some way you become spiritual. No. Spirituality is not a change in attitude. It is just that your experience of life has transcended your physical nature. You have touched something beyond your physical nature. Once you touch something which is beyond your physical nature, you are naturally an absolutely inclusive human being. Because between you and me, my body is my body, your body is your body. My mind is my mind, your mind is your mind. These things will never be the same, okay? It'll always be like this. So if you identify with your body, you are you, I am me. But there is a dimension beyond this, because what you call as your body, what you call as your mind, the content of all this you gathered from outside, it is not even you, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There is something beyond that in you. If that something beyond that… beyond the physical comes into your living experience, then we say you're spiritual. Then you're not naturally inclusive and expansive with life. You're not a restricted thing, you cannot fall out of a book.
That's how we say that your preachings, your teachings and…
I have no teachings, preachings. I only have methods for people.
Okay.
Use it and see it'll work.
Okay, so let's put it the other way, that when you talk about your methods or the applicable, how you apply things to life, as a guru or someone who is seen as a yogi, how do you make palatable yourself, in the Indian context? Because generally there is a feeling that, the spiritual seeker, he doesn't have to be married, he can't talk about sex, he can't talk about Bollywood music. That's the way generally the religious gurus are perceived in the country.
But this is because your idea of religious guru has come from a calendar art. But look back and see on this… in this country's history. Who are the greatest gurus in this country? Just tell me. You take a Krishna, or you take a Shiva, or you take Agastya Muni, or you take various others. They lived absolutely full lives and they made the greatest statements about spiritual process and yoga, isn't it? So we have forgotten that denial is not the way to exist. By choice, at a certain stage in your life, you withdraw. See, even if let's say a student is in education, let's say you want to do a PhD. Do you go out and party with your friends every day? Do you?
No.
No. You'll sit up with a book, you sit in a library, you sit in dull spaces. But you're working towards something. Similarly, yogi also at a certain stage in his life, he withdraws into a certain level of focus and sadhana within himself. When that space is over, if he wishes to share, he comes to the world. If he doesn't wish, he just wants to be blissed out by himself, he lives in the mountain. It's a choice. So, today in the world…
But in your case, when we see your life, you drive SUVs, you play golf, you wear jeans, so…
I do many more things. If I give you the list, you'll be shocked.
No, I'm just giving you a few examples of how unconventional you are.
It is not about convention. Tell me, in the past, yogis were great warriors, they were great administrators. They largely were next to the kings, advising them as to how they should conduct their administration. So, where did this idea come from? Because you saw one calendar image of a yogi, and you think that's how it should be, frozen somewhere in a cave.
Yeah, I mean, that's an image which has been straight away lifted from the mythical books and the…
No, go back into the mythical thing and see. Shiva is always dancing, Krishna is dancing, singing, living a life, administration, battles, everything, right? Whoever you think is the highest yogi in the country, just see how they lived. They lived an active, absolutely involved life for those times. Okay, they didn't drive a car, but everywhere you see Krishna is driving a chariot. With what? With 6 horses, okay? But today it's 600 horses, what can I do?
Okay, coming to some serious issues which the nation is facing, and
this is very serious. Krishna was a good driver.
No, I mean, this is the lighter side, but coming to the serious issues which our country is facing right now, and I would like to start with the water scarcity. Last year you held a very big rally on the rivers. How far it has progressed, I would like to know on that, and then I'll come to you about the water scarcity which the country is facing.
See, water scarcity in the country is far more dire than most people understand and we would like to admit. It's far more serious. Unfortunately, we're just going on as if some miracle will happen. No, miracle won't happen. But we can turn it around, we can perform the miracle if all of us are committed to it. About Rally for Rivers, as you know, it gathered 162 million people supporting the movement, which is a never-before thing in India, that so many people stood up. So why such a thing happened? Because it's been on everybody's minds. Everybody knows that something needs to be done, but it just… they needed a fool to… who is to bell the cat? You understand? You need a fool to bell the cat, so here I am.
But talking to you about this recent report of Niti Aayog which came in and which said that in the next 2 years, some 11 urban cities will really be facing a very big problem as far as water scarcity is concerned. How do you tackle this issue? Of course, the government is working on it, but things don't somehow seem to be very visible.
We must fundamentally understand this. There is no magic wand solution. What is our basic situation? We must understand this. We have precipitation in this country, largely during monsoon times. Our rainfall is approximately 45 to 50 days per year. So the water that comes down in 45 to 50 days, you must hold it in the ground for 365 days. All kinds of genius solutions are being talked about, but I'm telling you, the only and only way you can hold the water is by keeping the soil organically rich, and substantial amount of our land should be in shade, and there must be a lot of bioactivity. This is the only way you can hold it. People are talking about check dams, this dam, that dam. Well, somewhere for flood mitigation if you do something, it's fine, but that's not a solution. You cannot hold water by building dams. Just to give you what we have done, Ganga basin, for example, because Ganga is in everybody's mind, it accounts for 25% of India's geography and 33% of India's agricultural activity. But in the last 50 years, we have removed 94% of tree cover. What is the plan? Looks like we don't want to run the nation.
But Sadhguru, this of course is leading to a very serious environmental problem as well. But how do you really balance the environment and the developmental activities?
See, they're not against each other.
No,
they're not against each other. This is the fundamental of Rally for Rivers. Economy versus ecology. If you go like this, economy will win anyway. It is very important… I openly said I am going to officiate a marriage between ecology and economy, because unless ecological activity is economically sensible, it is not going to work, especially in a country like this where there is such a big population pressure. About Rally for Rivers, what has happened? Well, a whole lot of recommendations we made, the government is already making it into a policy. It is coming in bits and pieces, but it is moving rapidly. One important thing is 84% of our water is used for agriculture. We are the oldest agricultural nation on the planet. In the south, in Tamil Nadu, we have a history of 12,000 years of agricultural practices. But we are still farming as we did 1,000 years ago. Now if you want to micro-irrigate, if you micro-irrigate, this 84% of the water you're consuming, you can bring it down to 30 to 40% of what you're consuming right now. But how do you micro-irrigate land when land ownership is only 1 hectare on an average? 2¼ acres per person. It just doesn't work. And a whole lot of people are doing micro-irrigation. After 2 years, they'll rip it out because it doesn't work for them. We have to aggregate irrigation. This is what we are pushing for right now. All of you media should push for this. We changed one fundamental law, we made a request and immediately it was changed. There was a 30% tax for FPO. FPO means a farmers' producers organization. Individual farmer is not taxed, but if they get together for farming activity, they're taxed 30%, so they will never get together. If you do not scale up the land, you cannot bring in technology.
Absolutely.
So if you integrate irrigation, one reason why so many farmers are committing suicide, in the last 10 years, 300,000 farmers have committed suicide. All the 4 wars we have had has not killed that many people. And we can't close our eyes to this is not a small thing.
But where are the political parties going wrong? Because I'm not naming a particular party A, B or C, but farmers' distress or the rural distress is something which the political parties have not been able to get the hang of it.
The problem is in a democratic system, right now, I'm not blaming you, but because of the media 24/7, there is an election happening in Nagaland. But when I watch the news, it feels like it's a national election. So throughout the year, there's an election. When there is an election, obviously political parties go into a different kind of rhetoric because they have to win the election. Even if they wish to… genuinely, if they wish to do something, still they have to win the election, there is no other way. So they will all get into competitive rhetoric where the real issues are completely lost. So I pushed for this almost 8–9 years ago. I'm very happy that today Prime Minister is talking about it, many others are talking about it. One election, once in 5 years. Rest of the time, let's build a nation. Once in 5 years, we can fight as much as we want, to our heart's content. But rest of the time, there are things to do in the country. Still 500 million people have not eaten properly.
Absolutely. You just spoke, Sadhguru, about elections, and these days we see that a lot of religious gurus have started playing an active role in elections. But there is also a feeling that why should religious gurus get into the electoral process? Why should they campaign? Why should they endorse for a particular party? What is your feeling about this whole thing?
If a democracy has to be genuinely democracy, a genuine democracy or a successful democracy, individual human beings should think for themselves and vote. Even in a family, you should not influence your family as to who they should vote for. That's how I live. I don't even tell my daughter who she should vote for, because she should think for herself. If she wants information, I will tell her this is what has happened, but I will not tell her you vote for this. All the people who follow me, they will all ask, Sadhguru, who should we vote for?
But is
so
it
use your brains.
But what you say and what you prescribe on the voting pattern, isn't it something which is divergent from the majoritarian
No,
thinking
why…
of
I
our
will come
country?
to that. I'm saying if you want a successful democracy, this is how it should be. Otherwise, you have feudalism. Anybody who does en masse voting, whether because you're a religious guru or a spiritual guru or you belong to this community or that community, once en masse voting happens, you're practicing feudalism in the form of democracy. This is not a positive story.
But often there are reports that, a particular religious guru or a Baba has about 5 lakh followers, and the political parties or the leaders don't want to annoy him at all because they carry a huge vote bank for themselves.
I have given up that advantage by saying this because I will never tell people to whom to vote for. But it's for people to evaluate, not vote emotionally. See, first of all, voting on the basis of caste, religion and even party, that you are stuck in one party, is feudalism. Every time, 5 years you must evaluate what have they done. Have they done good for the country? Yes, bring them back. They have not done good for the country, take them out. This is democracy. If you vote on party lines, caste lines, religious lines, this means you're bringing back feudalism. You can as well have monarchy. Why all this trouble of election?
Absolutely. If you look at the current political narrative, the general elections are not far away, but the narrative which is evolving is more not developmental, though Prime Minister Narendra Modi keeps talking about the development politics, the politics of performance. But despite that, we see the regional parties, the smaller parties, they are involved into very myopic issues. For example, they talk more about ideology, it's about secularism versus communalism, and a whole lot of other XYZ issues.
See, unfortunately, they're able to create a certain emotion about small local issues which are of no consequence for the nation. Those issues should not even exist. But unfortunately, local issues become an emotional process and people are using that. This is why I'm saying, if you have only one election, people have more time to think and evaluate. Every 2 months an election is happening, something… a by-election is happening, it looks like a national election on the television.
That's true.
So this has to change because in a country like India, where our economics are not great for 1.3 billion people, we don't have a great economic output. In a country like India, which is striving to develop, too much rhetoric is not going to work for us. We will waste our time. A whole lot of people seem to be filling their bellies just by talking. It's time we do something. This is our time. In the next 10, 15 years' time, if we genuinely don't turn the economy around in a big way, we might have missed the bus, because in the world many things will change. The advantages we have right now of a youthful population and a certain placement, all this will be lost.
Right. But when you talk about the economic empowerment, the economic development of the country, you also have a country like US which is talking about protectionism, America first, and it does have a ripple effect on other developing nations.
Let us not get carried away by local political rhetoric of that country. In every country, the government… every government thinks, in India, Indian government must think India first. Tell me, hello?
That's true.
Our Prime Minister should talk India first. He may not use the term, but everybody is working as India first. There they're working America first. So they use America first to win an election. Let's not get carried away by that.
But before you wind up the interview, we talk about the modern day parenting, which is becoming a very big challenge, because with both the husband and the wife working, the children left home alone, and they just rely on the gadgets and all the technology which is available at hand. This is a very, very serious issue which is facing the society, especially in India at the moment, and of course in the Western countries as well. How do the modern day parents actually face this problem, and how do they really tackle this whole issue?
Don't say modern day, I think westernized parents.
Okay.
Why I'm saying this is, see, before we break any social structure, we must have a better structure ready. We break one structure without any clue, what are we going to do with the problems that arise? Any structure, however bad a structure is, some structure will be working, all right? Every structure will be working in a society at some level. If you break that, what is the alternate structure? Can the whole population make this trapeze bar jump? No, a whole lot of them will fall down. Some will jump successfully, rest will not jump. So when changes happen, if it's more organized and there is more consultation and all these things, it would be better. But that has not happened. Well, in Western countries, they have all kinds of babysitting arrangements, which you don't have here. So if we've brought in this thing that both man and woman will work today, so having children becomes a huge problem. At least till they're 5, 6 years of age, if they don't have that fundamental care, I don't think they grow up very well. And we have had the luxury of our mothers being there all the time. The value of that, I don't think you can ever evaluate that in economic value. Well, she did not earn a rupee, but the value of her life in our lives is immense. So, we have to not simply follow the West, because they're suffering immensely in the West. We don't have to go the same way. This does not mean women should not work. They should work, but we could do this in a more gentle way. We can do variety. See, today work is not necessarily all physical outside. There's a whole lot of work that you can do on your computers. Offices could be set up in the home atmospheres. It's very much
But
possible.
despite all these support systems which you're talking about, isn't our society also heading towards a westernized culture? Like, for example, children or the teenagers having sex at a very early age, and this is something which has already started in India as well.
See, one solution we are looking at is, I'm trying to push this concept of a one building city. Here there are offices, homes, schools, shopping, everything. And people work there, especially women. If they work there, if they have children, they can, stagger their times in so many different ways. They work in the same building, they're living in the same building, there's a wonderful forest and natural atmosphere around them, children will grow up in nice atmospheres. You must understand, in the West, even though these situations are there, they have a lot of space, there is a lot of arrangements for them. Those arrangements and those spaces are missing in India. If you follow the same lifestyle, the suffering that will come to us will be manyfold more than what's happening to them.
So what's your one-line prescription to the political leaders, to the society, to the country, towards the last leg of the interview?
See, one important thing that needs to happen is economic development right now. For this to happen, we are thinking in so many ways, largely, doing things as other nations have done. But in our country, still 65% of our population is in farming. And we have a latitudinal spread from Kanyakumari to Himalayas, we have a latitudinal spread where you can grow just about anything that anybody needs in the world, okay? And 12 months of the year. And we have a farming capability. This means intrinsic knowledge is there. If we don't make farming lucrative in the next 3 to 4 years' time, you will see, I've already kind of surveyed this. Not even 2% of the farmers in Tamil Nadu want their children to become farmers. In 15 to 25 years' time, we will lose the ability to grow food in this country. Soil is becoming weak, water is weak, we are losing out the farming capability which is there in the human beings right now. If we do this right, we can become the breadbasket of this world. And economic well-being will be well spread out. It is not just in one tall building in Mumbai, all the money is stored up. The economic well-being must be spread out for the well-being of the country. That can only happen in this nation if we make farming truly lucrative. So I think this is the way forward. Industry, everything must happen, but the largest number of people are involved in this sector. If you do not transform that in the next 3 to 5 years' time, we have a huge problem. We're talking about, 50% of the population, which is nearly 600 million people below 24 years of age. Youth is a tremendous energy. Only if you have them